This is a major notice about Bitcoin. While the majority of users are goo-goo for Bitcoin SegWit blocks, there are many caucuses in the Bitcoin community who are proclaiming Bitcoin Cash as the one true Bitcoin. And while developers push forward SegWit code and users are cautioning of additional major hard forks for Bitcoin's future, others in the big block side of thinking are busy defining the game plan to make a major shift of the Bitcoin brand, defining the world's real Bitcoin away from BTC Bitcoin and to Bitcoin Cash. So what's your definition of Bitcoin? Who or what defines what the actual Bitcoin is? And in this crazy crypto world, should persons like us just keep holding our private keys? Let's discuss. Hey everybody, I'm Gary Palmer Jr., you're you, and together, welcome to Minting Coins. Thank you for showing up and being a part of this video. I know that there's everyone out there who is really interested, really anxious, really on edge about learning more about Bitcoin Cash and what's going on with this crazy hard fork situation. A lot of people have been anxious to either buy it or to sell it or to get their hands on it. And while we were all expecting it to sort of happen right on the dot on this particular time and this particular date, there was a much longer delay than what we all anticipated. It's taken a lot longer for the Bitcoin Cash to get going and get a strong start, and there's a lot of reasons why everything isn't working as everyone is expecting with Bitcoin Cash right now. And what I'm hearing, what I've been seeing, and what we've all been experiencing in the community, what we were talking about yesterday, is that the Bitcoin Cash, as it is right now, is another altcoin that now exists in our world. We have Bitcoin, BTC, which has the majority of the hash power. And not only does it have the majority of the hash power, but it is the longest Bitcoin chain from the original creation of the Bitcoin chain, and still 21 million coins strong. But with that being said, there's a lot of people who are really focused on this Bitcoin Cash, and there's a lot of people who are just 100% behind Bitcoin Cash becoming the ultimate, truest, purest form of Bitcoin that all the world has to see. So this might be in line with what you're thinking. This might be out of line with what you're thinking, or maybe you just aren't sure exactly what to think or what's going on. So with that, I just wanted to say that I want to give everything a chance. I want to give each of these cryptocurrencies a chance, and I want to give Bitcoin Cash a chance as well. I think that Bitcoin Cash has some disadvantages, and the biggest concern that I have around Bitcoin Cash is simply how large the mining block is. And we can talk about how Bitcoin Cash has the potential to change the world in the original thinking of allowing everyone to become banked and allowing everyone to have access to buy and sell money from person to person without censorship and without resistance from centralized authorities. But just to state the underlying reason why Bitcoin Cash, why I'm skeptical personally of Bitcoin Cash, is that with these larger block size, it simply makes it harder for common people or people without as much experience, without as much equipment, without as much in terms of resources, for them to be involved with the mining. And in Bitcoin, for you to be involved in mining or for you to run your own full node, that means you get to have a voice. That means you get to vote. That's how you vote in Bitcoin, by having a full node. And in Dash, if you wanted to have a full node in Dash, and if you want to be a voter in Dash, you would need to have how much? I think about $181,000, almost $200,000 in today's value for Dash, for you to run a full node. So for you to have one vote, you need to have that much money. It's a crazy amount of money. And so that's the issue that I have with the Bitcoin Cash. Not only that, but it really has a lot of issues with the malleability of the Bitcoin and the security in terms of that. And so, but at a fundamental level, if the block size is bigger and there's fewer organizations, fewer people who are running full nodes and who are mining, then essentially we get into the system of creating bit banks, centralized mining organizations that have the full, collectively through the fewer and fewer of them and through monopolization, and each of these mining companies getting bought and then gathering up into one larger mining company that has an increasingly larger and larger share of the Bitcoin hash rate, mining power, voting power, number of people who are able to run nodes. It might not be 100% power that they can ever get, but they would have a huge percentage of voice in terms of them voting with that larger block size, especially if you consider that Bitcoin could be split multiple times, adding onto the confusion of what is the real Bitcoin, where should the money be, and it's just a really slippery slope to increase the block size and create fewer and fewer opportunities for people to run full nodes. And with all that being said, I could be wrong. Bitcoin Cash could be exactly what the world needs for Bitcoin to reach the moon and for everyone to be able to be part of the world, payment system, decentralized, uncensored, peer-to-peer digital cash that also serves as a store of value. It really remains to be seen, which is why I really hope everyone out there is just holding on to their Bitcoin keys, securing your private keys, having a Ledger Nano S, having a Trezor wallet. It is just critical that you get a hold of your private keys, because no matter what happens with these Bitcoins and with however many number of forks we have moving forward, if you have access to your private keys, then whichever Bitcoin ultimately wins out, you have your skin in the game, and you will be collectively a part of whichever Bitcoin becomes the Bitcoin with the largest market cap, or the Bitcoin with the largest total network hash power, however this is defined. So with that being said, there's a lot of information that we can get into to talk about what this definition is of what is the largest Bitcoin, what is the realest Bitcoin, because while there's a lot of people out there that just refuse to accept Bitcoin Cash as even a contender, I think there's a huge risk with that sort of dismissive attitude of Bitcoin Cash, because Bitcoin Cash could have all the stars lined up and could have the major banks, the financial institutions, money, miners, investors, to really give a lot of support to the network effect that will be coming down the line for Bitcoin Cash. And there are indications that I am seeing today talk about this. And so I want to show you how are people starting to pivot this conversation, how are they starting to turn this conversation, and then talk about that. So when you're seeing this information, you could have a little bit of foundational knowledge so that you could make better decisions for yourself, and we could all make better decisions collectively together. So no matter what ultimately ends up happening, we could have as many of us as possible all on this, roller coaster rocket ship to the moon. So with that being said, why don't we pop over to the market and take a look at the news, and let's discuss. Okay, so starting over at coinmarketcap.com, taking a quick look at the market, we have broken the $100 billion mark again. Very, very exciting. So we are in August and we are past this SegWit activation. We are through, or not really, we're not past the SegWit activation, but we are locked in with BIP 91. We are locked in with BIP 148. We are in the process of activation. And at this rate, we should have SegWit activated. It's predicted to happen within 7 and 10 days from now. And then SegWit will be fully activated on Bitcoin, Bitcoin BTC. But with that, right now we are over the $100 billion market cap. And I suppose this $8 billion from Bitcoin Cash doesn't hurt. Nice little pocket change. That just appeared out of nowhere, and you can see from the 7-day trend, it was sort of trending down, down, down with some dips, and then had a huge spike. I saw it around $1,000, and then we see it drop again. Yeah, really interesting. It's just really strange. You look at the top 10, and we have 2 Bitcoins. You look at the top 10, we have 2 Ethereums. Yeah, and we have Dash, Monero, Litecoin. Very interesting coins, interesting projects. I guess it's also really interesting to see Ripple no longer in the top 3. I know that they were playing around before. I know Litecoin was catching up with them for a quick minute a few months ago, but now they're definitely in that strong number 4 position. Where else are we? BTC dominance, this says 44%, about almost 45%. And I guess the BTC makes it pretty clear that they're not talking about Bitcoin Cash in terms of that, dominance. But what do we have? We still have a total market cap of Bitcoin at 45 billion, Ethereum half of that. And it's really almost a guessing game. Any of these coins could pop and could just 10x, including Bitcoin, I suppose. And a lot of that has to do with the news. So as we see additional news coming out, we can expect to see the news have an effect, so forth and so on. So moving forward with this Bitcoin Cash, and I was mentioning before, it was really having a slow start. Oops. And so as this Bitcoin Magazine article is talking about, it was having some hash power issues with having enough mining power and hash power with the level of difficulty that it just started off slow, and we are over 100 blocks away between, you were thinking if Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash are started at the same point and the same chain, forked at the same time, that they should both be mining relatively the same number of block, but they are really about 100 blocks away. And because Bitcoin Cash is mining at such a slow rate of speed, just because the mining power isn't there, it's not where they say it is, and we just see that in how long it's taken to mine these blocks. And so we're looking at how the market is behaving, and so so turning back to the article, there's a couple different reasons why we're seeing volatility and why we're seeing a lot of confusion, and people are trying to figure out what's going on. And so the first is that many Bitcoin users are still having difficulties accessing their BCH because many wallets are not supporting the new currency, or they're not supporting the new currency yet. So it's very difficult for people to extract their private keys and then to import their private keys into a BCH wallet, and then doing so in a way that doesn't compromise your existing BTC Bitcoin. Second, hardly any exchanges have enabled BCH deposit yet. There's a lot of exchanges that have BCH deposits existing inside the account because people already had BTC, and the exchanges gave them a 1-for-1 ratio of BCH for the BTC that they had. And so people are able to make trades inside the exchange with the BCH that they have existing in there, but they're not able to deposit new BCH, and they're also not necessarily able to withdraw the BTC from the BCH trades, because since the exchanges don't truly have the BCH, they don't want to let people walk away with, you know, BTC from BCH that, you know, may eventually never exist if those blocks aren't mined. And so the exchanges need to see an increase in the speed of these blocks being mined. Otherwise, instead of it taking, you know, hours or days, it's going to take, you know, just days and days and days for these transactions to have full confirmations and for the exchanges to trust it. Which brings us actually to the third point. Because Bitcoin Cash blocks are slow and the chain is, you know, insecure, not 100% trusted, because there's really not a lot of development time into the code for Bitcoin Cash, especially when you compare it to the amount of time and testing that's gone into the code for Segwit. And we know code based on, you know, Bitcoin Cash has just had some errors and some lack of definition, and so there are some security concerns that people legitimately have. So and so because of all that, when the exchanges do allow the BCH deposits, it could take hours, if not days, then for these accounts to be credited, as we were, you know, just mentioning a second ago. So it's interesting and crazy, even in the first place, that we have Bitcoin Cash. You know, we had Segwit 2x from the New York agreement, and Segwit 2x said that we are going to do BIP 91, and BIP 91 is going to be compatible with BIP 148, so they can both be activated and prevent a chain split. And then with BIP 91 being activated, we were going to then have a hard fork, deliberate hard fork. Hard forks do happen all the time. It's just when a hard fork happens and there's a huge, you know, even if it's a huge minority that's giving life and breathing life into, you know, that fork, then that's when it becomes a problem. A problem in terms of an existing fork that, you know, doesn't just die away. So with this Segwit 2x, now that the BIP 91 was in the process of being activated in a few months, that they were going to do the 2x part of the Segwit 2x, which was increasing the block size from 1 megabyte to 2 megabytes. But instead we had Bitcoin Cash just come out of nowhere and go forward on August 1st. I guess no matter what, they definitely wanted this to happen for whatever reason, even if it was, you know, financial reason, because essentially there was some funny things going on Twitter where people were saying, wow, you know, Ethereum ICOs are crazy. How could you possibly scam people for millions and millions and hundreds of millions of dollars? And then someone says, you know, as Jihan Wu, hold my beer. Because with this Bitcoin Cash and the miners creating this Bitcoin Cash, this is essentially like a giant multi-billion-dollar Bitcoin ICO. And so with that being said, we now do have a fork of Bitcoin. We do have these two forks of Bitcoin, but this doesn't answer what about the 2x part of the current BTC, where we're going to increase Bitcoin to the 2 megabytes. So there was someone on Twitter, Jameson, and so Jameson Lab says, so now that we have the two Bitcoin forks, thanks to the Bcash, are folks still doing the Segwit 2x? Because that is how you get 3 forks, 3 Bitcoins. So we would have Bitcoin Cash, 8 megabytes. We would have Bitcoin 2x, I suppose. So Bitcoin Segwit 2x. Then you'd have Bitcoin 1 megabyte, I guess the original setup with just Segwit. But yeah, that'd be 3 different Bitcoins. That is something that doesn't excite me. It's something that doesn't excite the market. The more Bitcoins and versions of Bitcoins you have, the more dilution, you know, that you have, because all of that market cap could be in just the 1 Bitcoin. You know, I know that's like a little bit Bitcoin maximalist sounding, but I suppose that when I think about Bitcoin and I think about how strong Bitcoin is, I think about the ways to destroy Bitcoin. And the way to destroy Bitcoin is to divide and conquer. It's to fork Bitcoin so many times and then throw fuel and throw flame and throw fire and increase the network effect of the Bitcoin that has the greatest set of rules that meet the advantages of centralized authority. And then that would be the Bitcoin that they would convince the world is the real Bitcoin. And so this is the first step, is having multiple versions of Bitcoin, and then for the community to continue the infighting and continue the arguing of what the real Bitcoin is, or what Bitcoin is, or these definitions of Bitcoin, so much that it won't even matter, because organized thinking and centralized power will move forward in the path of least resistance toward the goals, toward the objectives of the business plan. And so, step one, fork Bitcoin several times. And so here's an interesting graphic that we have here. And so this is Bitcoin. This is the coin market cap 2018. So we have Bitcoin, Bitcoin money, Bitcoin bucks, Bitcoin cash, Bitcoin chips, Bitcoin bills, right? It's like all Bitcoin. Just Bitcoin ICO after Bitcoin ICO. So this is exactly what I'm talking about that we do not want to see. Because you can imagine if each of these market caps were added up, then you get a market cap that reaches the trillions of dollars. And if Bitcoin had a market cap of $1 trillion, I think each Bitcoin would be worth about $58,000 per Bitcoin. So $1 trillion market cap equals a $58,000 Bitcoin. And so, fewer Bitcoins, I think, is a stronger play, but now we have two of them. And so what should we do? I want to emphasize this. Just hold on to your keys. I don't recommend trading. I don't recommend selling. I don't recommend day trading. The only thing that sounds interesting to me is dollar cost averaging into the market. And now it's really confusing, because which Bitcoin are you supposed to dollar cost average into? We can talk about this for a while, but before the fact, just buy and hold, and just hold both coins. If you have both coins now with your private keys, I recommend you just perhaps separate the coins, put all your Bitcoin into a new Bitcoin address after you separate the Bitcoin Cash, and put that into a separate Bitcoin Cash address, and just sit on it. This is the very beginning, and one of these is very likely to hockey stick. And if it forks again, then one of those, if it's all going to be in your possession with those private keys, will hockey stick up to the moon, and you can be part of that ride no matter what happens. So I recommend that people just stay away from the exchanges. They're very suspect. There's a lot of legality questions, on a state-by-state basis, and ultimately, hold these private keys. Hold your private keys. Get a Ledger Nano S. Get a Trezor wallet, and consider dollar cost averaging what you can afford to lose, because this whole market could go to zero. I mean, we just don't know. Another funny meme, that Charlie Lee sent out. If you don't control your private keys, you're going to have a bad time, okay? Again, you really want to have control of your private keys. I was talking with somebody at one of our meetup groups, and having your Bitcoin wallet on Coinbase, looking at Coinbase as a Bitcoin wallet, maybe you have a Shift card, or that's just your Bitcoin wallet, where maybe you send business transactions, or you're sending payments to or from. That Bitcoin wallet might be a Bitcoin wallet because it has a Bitcoin address that you sort of control. But that Bitcoin wallet, you do not have access to the private keys of that public address. And if you don't have access to the private keys, and you don't have access to the Bitcoin, and everyone that had their Bitcoin on Coinbase is not getting access to their Bitcoin Cash BCH. And so just please recognize that Coinbase is an exchange. It is a centralized authority, and you do not have access to your private keys on Coinbase, even though Coinbase is an amazing company, and it's definitely the #1 website that I recommend everyone use, to purchase their Bitcoin. If you don't, have any other means to buy and sell Bitcoin, or services or products to, trade in Bitcoin, to start exchanging with Bitcoin, encouraging businesses to accept Bitcoin, and just increasing the economy around you, which is just going to help the whole community in a huge way. It adds on to the network effect of what's going on. So Charlie Lee. So Charlie Lee actually said something else. What was he saying? So everyone's trying to figure out what the actual Bitcoin is. Yeah, he said this. He said the same people who previously argued that the longest chain is Bitcoin are now saying that Bitcoin Cash is Bitcoin because of Satoshi's vision. And so Satoshi's vision, without getting really deep into that, the people behind Bitcoin Cash are saying that Bitcoin Cash is more in line with Satoshi's vision of a peer-to-peer decentralized cash, and increasing the block size was in line with his way that he saw Bitcoin going forward according to the white paper. And so the people who are running Bitcoin Cash, they were saying, what is the real Bitcoin? The real Bitcoin is the Bitcoin that has the longest chain, because at that point they were concerned that there was going to be a user activated soft fork, and then the user activated soft fork that would have then activated SegWit would have been behind the actual Bitcoin. But now what we have is Bitcoin Cash existing because the actual Bitcoin has SegWit. And so now the people behind Bitcoin Cash, and then now instead of saying that the actual Bitcoin is the Bitcoin of the longest chain, now they're saying that the actual Bitcoin is the Bitcoin that fits Satoshi's vision. And so this is something that I've heard over and over again. And so this is Charlie Lee just pointing out how there's been a shift in how they've been thinking about that. I guess this is Henry Brad, who's a big supporter of the user-activated soft fork. And he was just saying, in case you were wondering why the BCH price seems so high and why it is so high, is because no one can deposit BCH to the exchanges. And once people can deposit the BCH into the exchanges, he's saying to expect a huge drop in the price, because there's going to be a huge portion of people, a huge number of people, especially a huge number of SegWit supporters who are just going to want to dump as much of this Bitcoin Cash BCH as they can, to then purchase as much Bitcoin as they can, because Bitcoin is just what they believe in 100%, Bitcoin BTC. So, what do I think? I think it's, probably going to dump. And I think after it all dumps, all the people that love Bitcoin Cash are just going to purchase Bitcoin Cash. And I think it's just going to be a huge cycle of ups and downs. And I think no matter what, this whole market is going up. I think that I can't predict what's going to happen. So, I think that it's a safer bet just being in the market than for me to try to time the market, especially when day trading and trading isn't my job. I have a particular set of skills, that I am very, very good at, and day trading is not a part of those skills. So that's how I feel about that. But I'm not, I just can't discount, as we were saying in the video yesterday, I can't discount Bitcoin Cash. There's just a lot of money, a lot of power, a lot of influence behind Bitcoin Cash, and Bobby Lee, and via BTC, and a lot of these huge miners, and a lot of these organizations that just have so much vested, so much interest in what's happening. And what we have, today's the second, so what we have is another quote coming from John McAfee. And so this guy's name has been all over the Bitcoin community. He really has a type of tongue that keeps him in the news. And so this is what he said really recently. He said that Segwit attempted to solve the wrong problem unsuccessfully. There will only be Bitcoin Cash in the end. We must have the longer blocks. And by longer blocks, he means larger blocks, the larger 8 megabyte blocks. So this is John McAfee saying that there will only be Bitcoin, and so he's just saying that BTC is not going to be the winner. John McAfee came out a few weeks ago and made some news when he said that he was going to eat a piece of himself on television if Bitcoin didn't reach $500,000 within the next 3 years. So this is August 2017, 18, 19, 20, in less than 3 years from before this time. By August 1st, 2020, John McAfee is saying that, in his other quote, that essentially Bitcoin Cash, the Bobby Lee version of Bitcoin, the big block, the longer block version of Bitcoin, is going to be the one and only Bitcoin. And so this is just a major influencer, someone that, understands technology and business, and this is where he's putting his chips and his reputation. And I'm not going to simply discount the information that's coming into me. So what does this bring us? So this brings us to some of what I really wanted to talk about with the focus of this show, what we're leading up to. And so this is Gavin Andreasen. And so Gavin, who is one of the original developers with Bitcoin, this is someone who had direct conversations with Satoshi Nakamoto. Gavin was part of the original core team for Bitcoin, and for reasons that aren't 100% clear to me, and for reasons that I didn't want to dig up as a part of this video, maybe people could help me understand some of his history, since his Wikipedia page is very bare. But Gavin Andreasen is no longer a direct developer or developer at all with Bitcoin, and he doesn't commit changes to the Bitcoin code anymore. But Gavin Andreasen did publish this article, this blog post on February 7th, 2017. And this is something that he kicked back up because we're having this huge conversation about the definition of Bitcoin, the definition of Bitcoin, the definition of the Bitcoin, what is the real Bitcoin, and I suppose, can that change? Can that change from one year to the next? With the evolution of these hard forks, how is this always defined, especially when some of these hard forks are going to exist for really the long term? So with this definition of Bitcoin, we're going to skip all of this right here and go right into what Gavin says that he would like to propose for this big picture technical definition of Bitcoin. And so I'm going to read his proposed definition of Bitcoin. So he says that Bitcoin is the ledger of not previously spent, validly signed transactions contained in the chain of blocks that begin with a genesis block with a hash defined, and it follows the 21 million coin creation schedule, and also has the most cumulative double SHA-256 proof of work. That was a lot. I think that's a pretty long sentence. And so what does that mean? So Bitcoin is the ledger of not previously spent Bitcoin. It's just a ledger of every public address and all the Bitcoin in every address that has never been spent. That's what Bitcoin is. But it also has to be a validly signed transaction. So that means it has to follow the rules of Bitcoin, whatever the rules of Bitcoin are in the code and the development. for a validly signed transaction. And then contained in the block that begins, so it has to contain the very original hash of the Genesis block from Satoshi. It has to follow the 21 million coin schedule, and so you can never have, according to this definition, you can never have inflation with this definition. And last, and certainly not least, as a part of this definition that he's proposing, has the most power, the most mining hash proof of work from the SHA-256 algorithm. And so if we can agree that this is what we mean when we say Bitcoin, then this creates a structure, this creates a definition where, you know, these are sort of the rules that people would then play by for what a Bitcoin is. And so so then it just goes to say, what is the accepted in this part in blue? What is accepted as the majority hash rate? So if Bitcoin BTC has a majority hash rate, then Bitcoin BTC is the real Bitcoin. But if Bitcoin Cash was to increase its hash rate and somehow got more than 51% of the miners to mine Bitcoin Cash, then according to this definition, then Bitcoin Cash would be the real Bitcoin. And so this really, you know, to me lays the groundwork of, you know, how they would create that shift from saying this is Bitcoin BTC, but the real Bitcoin is Bitcoin Cash, because Bitcoin Cash follows all these rules, all of this part in green about what the real Bitcoin is, and even though it wouldn't be the longest chain anymore, it would be the chain that has the most mining power and the most proof of work. And again, then he says here in the blog post, the opposite of up here in blue, is there a minority hash rate at the branch of the chain? And so if Bitcoin BTC is a branch of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin BTC it only at this point in the future, hypothetical, has a minority of the hash rate, then Bitcoin BTC, by this definition in green, would at that point no longer be the real Bitcoin. Really, really interesting, really intriguing to sort of see what's happening with the shift of Bitcoin, for me to sort of figure out, you know, for me to question what is the real Bitcoin, what is Segwit, is Bitcoin Cash solving problems? Is Bitcoin Cash just creating money for people that already have Bitcoin? Is Bitcoin Cash going to do what Bitcoin Cash says it's going to do, or is it just going to, you know, be just as good as Segwit but create fewer nodes, you know, fewer people who are able to run these full nodes? I suppose it remains to be seen. So where does this leave us? Let's do a quick recap, courtesy of Bitcoin Magazine. So first of all, with the Bitcoin Cash, if you don't want to have to do anything, you don't have to do anything, and there's no rush. If you have your private keys, and your funds are secure, and so no matter what, in the past and moving forward, just please make sure that you have access to your private keys. Two, if you want to use your BCH in any way, it's probably best to first move your Bitcoin BTC, to a whole new address that you control. Yeah, and so again, I wouldn't do any of this until you know what you're doing. But once you know what you're doing, and once you have, you know, your private keys and you know what you're doing, claim your Bitcoin Cash through whatever wallet system that you're using with your private keys. And then once you claim your Bitcoin Cash with your private keys, it's important, just as a act of due diligence, to take all your Bitcoin, of which you claim the associated Bitcoin Cash BCH from, take that Bitcoin, the real Bitcoin BTC that you have remaining, and transfer that to a new address, to a new Bitcoin address that is then not associated with the Bitcoin that the BCH came from. Have that separation so information isn't shared between the two chains, because at that genesis block of Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin, you just want to have a divergence and a separation of information once you do make this decision to do anything with your BCH, assuming you haven't already. So, wow, yeah, that's a lot of information. There's a lot in there with everything that's going on. I think it's really interesting. I think it's really intriguing. As I was saying before, I really want to give Peace a chance. I really want to give Bitcoin Cash a chance. I really want to give SegWit a chance. I'm really not interested in creating centralization. I'm really not interested in creating a system that excludes people from being able to participate. And if people can't participate with having their own full node because of time or resources or education, people in third world countries, not just people with awesome broadband internet and easy access to computers, then that's just a concern that I think is important for us to keep an eye on. And at the same time, let's not underestimate whatever powers that be, and let's not underestimate the market. Let's not underestimate each other. There's a lot of name calling out there. There's a lot of censorship out there, and I'm not interested in either one. People have comments. Everyone shares the comments. I love all the comments. 99% of all these comments are just not only constructive and helpful and insightful, but they're just encouraging and just really adding a lot of value for everyone that's checking out what's going on in the comments below. But with that being said, some of the comments can, there's sometimes some name calling, and I don't think anyone really means that. What I think we do mean is to have a conversation. I think what we do mean is to have a dialogue, to articulate the concerns that we have. And while we will not always have agreement or consensus, and now that we have 2 Bitcoins, I think that shows it pretty well. While some people are dead set for the reasons that they are clear about or that they aren't clear about, when you're making your decisions, I'm just asking that you're aware of both sides of consideration, and that when you make a choice, that you're just not saying bad things about other people in the community for the decisions that they make. We really want to be supportive of each other, and at the end of the day, if we're making other people feel like shit because their decisions are different than ours, then it's not going to add to a community where they're going to want to reciprocate a positive attitude, and for them to hold compassion long term when there's a lot of negativity and there's a lot of hostility. So I hope that you can relate to that. I hope that we agree on that, and just bringing more people together and bringing more information together. I think it's interesting that we don't know if Bitcoin Cash is going to take over, but at the same time, there's definitely this groundwork where more and more people are advocating Bitcoin Cash and are realizing that this could be how larger institutions want to interact with Bitcoin. And it remains to be seen, but we'll be bringing that information to you. We'll be reporting that information to you. We have a lot of additional information to bring to you to show you how this is all connected, to show you how the financial institutions and the big banks are really integrating Bitcoin into their ecosystem, into their network. And as they're doing that, that's creating the foundation. It's laying all this like fiber optic cable across the ocean of the internet, that's going to, creating the infrastructure of big things to come. So it's really important that we're aware of everything that's going on. Tap that like button, tap, the like button of each of these videos where you're getting some information that's reaching out to you. Please share your comments below. Let me know if you think Bitcoin Cash has a chance, if you're someone who's pro Segwit, and if you're someone who's pro Bitcoin Cash, then what do you think about the whole node situation and just keeping it so more people have nodes, because you don't have a vote unless you have a node. Let me know what you think. Share those comments below. Let's stick together, and I'm glad that together we're minting coins.